The night Gloria Ramirez was brought into Riverside General Hospital should have been ordinary, another emergency, another life to save. But the moment the sliding doors opened and paramedics rushed her into trauma room, nothing about that night would remain ordinary. It would become one of the strangest medical mysteries in modern history. A case so unsettling that even today, decades later, experts are still divided, and witnesses still shake when they talk about what they saw. The clock read 8:15 p.m., February 19, 1994, when Gloria arrived. She was only 31, but battling advanced cervical cancer. She could barely breathe. Her heartbeat scattered like static, her body trembling violently. Nurses stepped in quickly. Routine protocol: excision mask, 4-line, vitals check. But routine ended almost immediately. The first nurse leaned close to apply an injection, and paused. She frowned, moved even closer, and then whispered to another nurse, "Do you smell that?" It was a chemical scent, sharp, almost metallic, floating off Gloria's skin. Another nurse described it as a fruity, garlic-like odor, something she had never smelled on a human body in her entire career. When the staff cut open Gloria's shirt to attach defibrillator pads, their confusion deepened. Her skin had a strange, shine-on, oily, glossy layer that reflected the overhead fluorescent lights. No one in the room had an explanation for it. Still, they pushed forward. Gloria's condition was worsening. A nurse drew blood. The moment she pulled back the syringe, she froze. Inside the tube, mixed with Gloria's blood, were small particles, floating, shimmering, almost crystalline. She blinked, wiped her eyes, thinking she was imagining things, but the particles were still there. "Something's wrong," she muttered. She handed the vial to another nurse. That nurse lifted it to the light, and her eyes widened in shock. Before she could say a word, she staggered backward. Air had spun, the room tilted. Then she collapsed. Chaos erupted. "Get her out of here! Call respiratory!" "What's causing this?" Another nurse grabbed the vial to inspect it, curious, confused, maybe scared. A second later, she too began to wobble. Her face turned pale. She struggled for breath and collapsed onto the floor. A doctor stepped forward, trying to calm everyone, but as he approached Gloria, his vision tunneled. He felt the air thicken like inhaling gasoline vapors. A moment later, he vomited, tried to catch himself on a table, and went down. One by one, hospital staff were dropping as if something invisible had filled the room. Gloria was still dying on the table, but the medical team had no choice. They evacuated the room, dragging unconscious colleagues out with them. It was chaos, panic, and confusion all at once. Within minutes, 23 hospital employees fell ill. 5 were hospitalized. 1 was placed in intensive care, all from being near a single patient. The press would later call Gloria Ramirez the Toxic Woman. But in that moment, she was alone on the table, surrounded by panicked staff who were terrified to return. 10 minutes later, a skeleton team wearing makeshift protective gear forced themselves back into the room to finish the job they had sworn to do: save the patient. They tried everything. But at 8:50 p.m., Gloria Ramirez was pronounced dead. The hospital was shut down. Patients were moved outside. Hazmat teams arrived. 4 hours, nobody was allowed near Trauma Room 1. But whispers spread through the night shift. Was she exposed to something? Was it chemical poisoning? Was this contagious? What did we breathe in? Some staff believed she carried a deadly pathogen. Others believed she'd ingested a toxic substance. A few believed the hospital had been contaminated by something far more dangerous. One theory circulated in hushed tones. Maybe it wasn't Gloria at all. Maybe something external had entered the hospital with her. To find answers, the coroner transported Gloria's body to a secure facility. But even there, strange things continued. During the initial autopsy, technicians noticed the same oily film on her body and the smell-sharp chemical, almost synthetic. Some technicians complained of headaches and nausea while working on her. The body had become a crime scene. But there was no crime. A biohazard, but no known toxin. A mystery, but no explanation. The investigation quickly split into 2 rival camps: the scientists and the hospital staff. Months later, a team of chemists presented an explanation that sounded almost unbelievable. According to them, Gloria Ramirez had been using a home remedy, dimethyl sulfoxide, or DMSO, solvent, sometimes used for pain relief. They believed her cancer made her body retain unusually high levels of DMSO. The oxygen given in the UR converted DMSO into DMSO to a crystal-forming compound. The defibrillator shock converted DMSO2 into dimethyl sulfate, a toxic gas capable of knocking people unconscious. A simple chain reaction, they said. A medical accident, a chemical transformation inside the human body. Case closed. At least, officially. But there were problems, big ones. Doctors pointed out that the temperatures and conditions required to convert DMSO2 into a nerve gas-like compound simply don't happen inside the human body. Independent chemists said the chemical reaction described would be impossible without laboratory-grade conditions. Hospital staff who were present that night dismissed the explanation entirely, and a few insisted something unspoken was going on. Some believed Gloria had been exposed to illegal chemical dumping, something she unknowingly absorbed that night. Riverside in the 90s had a long history of industrial accidents. Others suggested the hospital had mishandled a toxic substance earlier that day, and Gloria's arrival simply triggered the exposure. A few believed a far darker theory, that the government had quietly stepped in and buried the real cause. There were sealed reports, missing documents, and statements that changed from one interview to the next. Nurses who fainted reported months of lingering health issues, breathing problems, nerve spasms, memory gaps. One nurse, who was hospitalized the longest, claimed she felt targeted for speaking out. She insisted the official theory was fabricated to protect someone or something. But the strangest detail of all, during the second autopsy, conducted weeks later, examiners found that Gloria's heart was missing. Some internal organs had liquefied, others were simply gone. No satisfactory explanation was ever provided. So what really happened that night? Did a rare chemical chain reaction turn a dying woman into a walking toxic spill? Was Gloria exposed to something external, something the public was never meant to know? Did the hospital mishandle a dangerous substance and silence the truth? Or was this one of those rare, terrifying moments in history where science simply fails to explain reality? Whatever happened inside Trauma Room 1, one thing is certain. Every person inside that room carried the memory for the rest of their lives. A memory of a woman whose body seemed to defy science. A smell that made trained professionals collapse. A chain of events that no forensic team has ever fully explained. The case of Gloria Ramirez remains unsolved, unsettling, untouched by time, and somewhere in the middle of all the theories, all the reports, and all the speculation, a young woman lost her life and left behind one of the most chilling medical mysteries ever recorded. The world calls her the Toxic Woman. But the truth, whatever it is, remains sealed in that hospital room, on a night when something impossible happened, something no one has ever been able to explain.